What's up, everybody? Welcome to Practical Alchemy, the show where I show you a hands-on approach to 3D modeling. Now, on today's episode, we are going to help you to become the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them will be your real test, but to train them will be your cause. That's right. On today's episode, we're talking all about Pokemon. We are going to be doing a Rhino tutorial of a Pokeball. Now, this is a pretty easy surfacing tutorial. We're going to cover some very basic spherical surfaces. We're going to cover some splits and some blends and some projections of curves into 3D surfaces, and should be a pretty quick one. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. As you can see here, I have found a Pokeball in Adobe Illustrator. Well, I didn't find it in Illustrator. I brought it into Illustrator. Found one that I liked and went ahead and laid some basic line work on top of it. Now, this original Pokeball was in a little bit of a shifted perspective, so I put the lines where I wanted them, made some quick design changes, and that's where we got. So, now we're going to move over to Rhino. We've got a new file opened up, and we are going to import that Illustrator file into Rhinoceros. We built this file in Illustrator in millimeters, so we are going to import 1 millimeter as a Rhino unit, since I also opened up the Rhino file in millimeters. Okay, now, the sketches that I brought in from Illustrator are going to be in the default surface, which I'm going to rename the sketch surface. Now, first things first, I want to make sure that this is centered at my 0 point. Because this is a spherical object, I want to make sure that I have it completely centered, so no matter how I manipulate it, I'm always acting about that center point, the very center of the circle. So go in and create a quick line, and I want you to go ahead and make sure your end snap is turned on here. We are going to snap to the ends of the surface right there. Now, grab everything by left-clicking from right to left and turn your mid snap on. That's going to allow us to grab this midpoint, transform move, and we are going to move. We snap to that midpoint and we want to move to here. In order to make sure that we hit that point exactly, we need to turn our grid snaps on, and you can see now that I've got this little guy on, I'm snapping to the grid point. So snap to there, and boom, we are completely centered. Now, next up, I want you to go ahead and select these middle curves, and we are now going to rotate those up into the front plane. Right now, all of my sketches are on the top plane, and what I want to do is I want to be able to design on the front of this ball, so I want to move them to the front plane so that I'm looking at them straight on, if I'm thinking of my view planes as different surfaces of a cube. So grab those, transform, rotate. We're going to again snap to that middle point, and now we're going to move over to our right plane, hold down the shift key, and click and rotate. Now you can see that these planes are standing up. What I'm going to do now is just click, shift drag them forward so that they're going to be in front of my final object. And that's going to set me up really nicely to start building the ball. So, next up, I want you to move over into layer 2 here, double click on it to rename it. We're going to call this the inner sphere. So let's go ahead and create the first sphere that's going to build our Pokeball. Okay, so maximize that top viewport. And spheres are pretty easy. They're one of the only primitives that I really use in Rhino. Typically I don't build cubes like using that command. I usually just build them surface by surface. And go ahead and we're going to do that solid sphere center radius. So find the center first, which is going to be that midpoint. Hold down the shift key, and we're going to set this guy. Oh, turn those grid snaps off. Pain in the butt. Don't like them. All right, and we're just going to click somewhere around where that inner surface is. Okay, and when we maximize or minimize and we shift over to our perspective, you can see we've now got the first surface. Okay, now let's go ahead and we now need to split this surface. We want to create this black inner ring here. And we want to preserve this as one surface. And the way that we're going to do that is by projecting multiple curves onto it and then splitting those curves so that I have one line, one continuous line that creates this cookie cutter for that inner sphere. Okay, back to Rhino. What I want you guys to do is now take layer 3, rename it your working sketch layer. Now, when I built this file in Illustrator originally, I was not paying a ton of attention about making sure that everything was centered up, about this middle point. So we are going to rebuild our curves to make sure that we are exactly centered. So click on that layer to make it the active layer. Turn your sphere off for now. And what I want you to do is just create a circle. We're going to use the midpoint to make sure that we're there. And now just hold down your shift key and we are going to go about where that circle is. Okay, this is now the circle that we are going to use for our button. And I want you to just create a simple line across. Hold down shift to make sure it's straight. Okay. Make sure that this little guy is about where you want him. And now we're going to mirror that about our midpoint. Okay, now you can see why that was important, that I didn't use my original sketches. Because if you look closely here, these two lines were not, these green lines were not the correct distance away from the midpoint. It would have been a lopsided PokeBall. No good. Okay, turn your sketch layer off. We don't need it for now. And what I would like for you to do is turn that inner sphere back on. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start projecting some curves onto this surface. That is what the project command is for. So underneath the curves menu, you can go curve, project, and you can then select the curve that you're going to project and then hit enter and select the surface that you're going to project onto. Now, this is very important. You need to select this surface in the view plane that you want to project from. For example, I know it's kind of confusing. If I was to select this sphere in the top plane, I am currently working in the Y and the X axis, that two-dimensional plane. So clicking on the sphere in that plane would want to project this curve in the Z plane, which as you can see would completely miss the object. It would just go straight down. But if I project it from the front plane, which is the ZX two-dimensional axes, it is going to project that curve into the Y dimension, which is forward through space. So let me show you what that looks like. Hit enter. You can now see that this has been projected along the Y axis through the object. And we actually have two surfaces that were curves that were projected. One on the front and one on the back. We don't need the one on the back. Delete it. Don't need it. Okay. If I was to split this sphere now, I would have two surfaces. But I have not addressed this yet. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with these other two curves. Curve from object, project into the Y plane, and you can now see that we've got, let me turn this into a little bit brighter, everybody can see it. Boom. We now have some really nice curves projected, a little orbit around our sphere. Okay. Now that we've got that, we can now split these curves. If this split command is new to you, the split command basically takes any point where two things, whether they be surfaces or curves or points, intersect and splits them. Basically cuts them. All right, so edit split, select the objects that you would want to split, which is not the sphere. It is this curve, and the cutting object, which is this circle. And you can now see that this curve that used to be a solid circle was cut by this circle. Delete those inner curves, we don't need them. And now split this using this and this. All right, and delete those two curves. Now, select all of that and join it together, and you can see we now have two closed curves, one on the top and one on the bottom. Now what we can do is split this inner sphere. So, edit, split, use these two lines as my cutting objects, and you can now see I'm going to select the top and bottom surfaces, visibility, hide, and I have now one nice ring surface. Pretty cool. We're getting there. Starting to look like a Pokeball. Okay, now go ahead and hide that layer. Don't need it for now. Switch over to the red layer up here, and we are going to call that the outer sphere. We're going to go back to our top surface, turn our original sketches back on, and we are going to now create a new sphere that represents the outer circle. So again, solid, sphere, center radius, using the midpoint as my center point, and now just shift dragging it out to about where I want it, and we now have that outer sphere. Okay, now what I can do is I could project that again and split it, but there's also, I could use another surface to split this surface. So what I'm going to do is now select this circle, and I'm going to project it into 3D space using the extrude command. Okay, surface, extrude curve, straight, and you can see that this is now trying to extrude that circle into the Y plane. And I can select how long that is. Okay, ghosted. You can see I've now projected that. And what I'm going to do is just very simply just split it. Edit, split. Select the object that I'd like to split, which is the outer sphere. Use that as my cutting object, and you can see that it has now split this circle where the two objects intersect. Okay, delete this surface, do not need it. I'm going to go over to layer 4, and I'm going to rename that the button layer. Now, select this circle that you've created, and what I want you to do is right-click on the button layer and change object layer. You can see now this circle is now in the green button layer. Hide that layer. Don't need it right now. We'll come back to it. Okay? Next up, let's project these curves. Okay? So what I'm going to do is select these two curves. Same thing as I just did. Extrude curve straight. Ooh, problem. These curves did not project into the Y plane. Why? Because these were one-dimensional lines, not two-dimensional curves. A two-dimensional curve is constrained in a plane. In our case of this circle, it was the XZ plane. So it had only one direction to logically go, which was the Y plane. A 2D curve could go into the Z plane or the Y plane. How do I redefine it? Well, if you look up here in my menu, I can change the direction of that curve. And I'm going to just select 2 points that define the direction that it's going to travel. And do that in the top layer. And you can see that I've now projected these curves in a different direction. Perfect. Change those over to the working layer, sketch layer just to give us a little bit more contrast. And now I'm going to use these two surfaces to split this ball. Edit, split, grab it, cutting objects, and it's now split into 4 pieces. Go ahead and delete those. Delete these rings. Turn that sketch layer off. Don't need it right now. Turn the working files off. Well, keep the layer on. Go ahead and select those curves. You can even say edit, select objects, curves, edit, visibility, hide. I hide a lot of things when I'm, especially early in a project, because I'm not ready to delete them yet. When I'm ready to delete them, I will, but changing the visibility gets them out of my way, but I can always grab them again if I need them. Which a lot of times things get messed up or you want to change things, and so you will want to use those curves again, and it's faster to just save them somewhere where you can find them versus deleting them and then trying to rebuild them. Okay, turn our inner sphere back on, and what do we got? We've got 2 surfaces. We got 3. 2, 3. And what we need to do is now create the connection between these surfaces. And I'm going to do that by sweeping. So, I'm going to switch over to my working sketches layer and just create a small jumper curve in between these two surfaces at the corner point. Okay, got my end snap on, so I'm grabbing those corners, and now what I'm going to do is just sweep using two rails. If you guys want a little introduction to the sweep command, you can go over to the Zelda Rupee video. I kind of explained what the sweep command is and how to use that. It's pretty straightforward. I do need to chain these edges to make sure that it all works. But this is a great tool for making these little short jumper surfaces that are curving in multiple directions. And all right. That didn't work. Uh-oh. Alright. First segment. Second segment. Second rail. Okay. Cross section. Boop. Got it? Got it? There it is. Yeah. Same thing on the bottom. Sorry. This is boring. I know it's not riveting. It's not good entertainment. Alright. Chaining these edges again. Put the pieces in a slot, make the right kind of selections, but be quick when racing the clock. Pop goes perfection. Yeah, boom, nailed it. All right, so we've got all these jumper surfaces. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna grab all of them, edit, join. Do we have a closed poly surface? Yes, we do, which is good. That's a good spot. If we're ever going to try to 3D print this, we want to make sure that it is a closed poly surface. That's how you get to 3D printing. Go ahead and undo that because I want to keep them in separate layers just so it's a little bit easier to see for the time being. Okay, now let's start working on this button. So, whoa, nope. All right, so here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and turn your sketch layer back on. Okay, and what we're gonna do is now rebuild. Oh, we already got one. So, edit, visibility, show selected. Yeah, see, I did need that guy again. Oh, no I didn't. What am I doing? Okay, sorry. Turn these surfaces off for a second. They're in my way. Okay, let's draw these other curves, just so I've, these other circles, just so I've got them. Again, I want to use that middle point so that I don't mess it up. Turn all these snaps, other snaps off. Whoa. Alright, hold on. I'm getting too big for my own britches here. That's no good. Alright. Okay, let's fill these curves. I have the midpoint, mid snap back on. Alright. There's that, and we've got three curves that we need to build. No other snaps should be on. Don't know why it's snapping. There's one, a two, a three. All right, good. Get rid of that original sketch layer. Don't need to see it right now. Grab these guys. 1, 2, 3. Move them forward. All right, now we're working. Now we're cooking. Okay, so what I want you to do, start off with this guy. I'm confusing myself now. Oh, I split it with the... Okay. Okay, I see what I did. Alright. We're just going to have to scale these down a little bit. That's fine. Transform, scale 2D. Scale them around the center point. I made the button smaller than I wanted. Whatever. It's fine. Okay, now... Turn the outer sphere off. We don't need it right now. Okay, let's go ahead and project this curve onto this surface. Turn your button back on. That's right, we need that button back on. Okay, so go ahead and take this little guy and surface extrude him straight. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this button pretty quickly by using some splits. Edit, split the inner and outer surface of the button and use that tube as the cutting object. Okay, now I can delete the inside on the purple and the outside on the green, and now I'm going to use the split command again to create the sidewall. So edit split, split that tube, and cut using those two surfaces. And what you can see we've got now is we've got this button that sticks out. You can see we've created that bevel edge there, or I'm sorry, that little connection surface there. That's how we do that. Okay, looking pretty good. Next up, let's create this little indent for the edge of the clicker button itself. So, what I want you to do is we are now going to use the project command again. Curve, curve from object, project. And I'm going to show you how I like to do these kinds of offset surfaces. It's pretty easy when you're working with a sphere, just a flat circle that you're projecting, but when you start to do like graphics and things like that, or like decorative inlays, it gets a little bit more complicated. Okay, so what I want you to do is go edit, split. We are going to take that surface and split it using those surfaces. Okay, turn the working files off for now because I want to get all those curves out of the way. Grab this surface, and we're going to say transform, move, and we are going to move it back by 2 millimeters. Enter 2, enter, and hold down shift to make sure it goes straight back. All right, now watch this. Solid, extrude surface. This is going to extrude a surface now. This surface that I've got selected, straight. And you can see it wants to now extrude this surface. I need to change the direction to this way, so it's coming towards me. But how far do we move it? We move it 2. So we want to move these sidewalls forward 2. We want to extrude these forward by 2. You want to make sure you turn cap off. Cap is going to create not just an extrusion, but also a front and back. We've already got the back. That's what we're using to create this extrusion in the first place. So cap it, no. Distance, 2, enter. And you can see that it has now jumped this distance. Awesome. But I want this button to actually stick out in front a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, grab these surfaces, edit, explode them. All right. And just go ahead and delete this edge here. And do the same thing. Transform, move. We're going to move this forward by 1. All right, I'll shade this so you can see it better. Now, how far do we need to extrude this solid edge? We need to go 1 forward, 2 back, 3. So, solid, extrude surface, straight, cap, no. Direction, this way. And we're going to need to go 3. And there we go. See, we've created that. And what you can see is, when we go to the rendered view, we've created a nice little dust guard kind of edge there. Turn your other surfaces on. Now it is time to start joining some stuff together. So, grab all your surfaces, edit, join. We're now one closed poly surface. Perfect. We could 3D print this at this point if we wanted to, but we don't want to because it's not done yet. It still looks lame. It's still boring. There's nothing to it. Okay, it's still too basic. Nobody would manufacture a PokeBall and just have all these hard corners. It would get all dented up. Like, you would have some kind of machining edge to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to chamfer these edges. Okay, so I'm going to just do some decorative chamfers. Go down to solid, fillet edge, chamfer. And I'm going to set my chamfer edge to 2.5 for this guy right here. That's looking good. I'm going to go with a 1.75 for right here. Nah, that's not good. I don't want that. I just want a little baby one. 0.5 right here. Yeah. And now maybe a 1 here. Alright. Nah, that's too small. That's dinky. If that's a bad word, sorry. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. Alright, there we go. Now it's starting to look a little bit better. Let's go and chamfer these guys up too. They need to look spiffy. Let's go with 1. 1 will probably do it. We don't want to overdo it. Typically we do, but not when it comes to detail work. Don't overdo it, just do it right. Oh yeah. And here we go. Look at this, rendered. Awesome. That looks like a Pokeball, if I've ever seen one. All right, let's do something real quick. Awesome. All right, cool. Now, you have a Pokeball. It is one closed poly surface. We're going to double check that by saying Analysis, Edge Tool, Show Edges, 0 naked edges. Awesome. Save that guy. If you need to 3D print it, you're going to export it to an STL file. And that is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please like it. If you'd like to see more videos like this, subscribe to this channel. There'll be new videos all the time. If you have any questions about it, or if you have any ideas for other things you'd like to see me build a model of, write them in the comments section below. And, oh, if you want to follow along, which you should, you want to learn things, you want to build things, right? Everybody wants to build things. I'm going to put all the support files down below so you can follow along with this video, build the Pokeball yourself, learn the CAD tools, go through a couple tutorials, you'll learn it all. It's going to be awesome. So, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you later on.